Hi, I'm Alan Gordon and welcome to another video. Topic is handling objections. Here they come. My boss is never going to go for this solution. This is just so far out of our budget, I don't see that we can do it. Your competitor was here yesterday and actually showed us a better solution. Alan, we're not allowed to buy from a new vendor. You have to be on our approved vendor list. Alan, I just can't see myself using this product. Those are objections. I'm going to show you the right way to handle these objections and show you why the old school mentality of gimmicks or ignoring the objection or even trying to close on the objection, flip it back on the customer and put pressure on them is just not the right way to go. They may work for some people, but in general, these techniques have been disproven and debunked. All right. You've started the sales process, you've done your needs development, you've identified your customer's primary needs and concerns, you're building value in your presentation, you're presenting your product and solution, and now you're going to do what's called a trial close. I have another video on trial close. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch that one first. A trial close is simply saying during your presentation, or what are you thinking right now? Based on what I've said, what are your thoughts? Where do we stand on a scale of 1 to 10? Those are trial close questions, and they allow you to gauge your customer's level of interest right at that moment. All right? Here's a little bit about customer psychology. If they start asking you questions, that means from a psychological perspective, they're leaning towards you. I want more information. I'm interested. Questions are a buying signal. And as we again discussed in another video, you can either move toward a close, or if you're in a much longer corporate sales cycle, you can take those questions and use those to ask more detailed process level questions. But sometimes you'll find the opposite, because when you ask a trial close question, sometimes psychologically speaking, your customer is going to be leaning away from you. I'm not sure this is for me. I'm not telling you this, but I actually don't like you. I don't trust you. I have some doubts and concerns. I'm not sure. Those are objections. I'm leaning away from you. Objections are actually not a problem. They're part of human behavior. They are a normal step in the psychological process. In fact, and I'm sure this has happened to you many, many, many times, in most sales scenarios, the customer is not the only one making the decision. He may be the only one listening to your presentation, but when he's done with your presentation, he has to go back to his wife or to his boss or to a committee or the board of directors, and he's got to explain and justify this purchase recommendation and why he's trying to make this decision. Most of the time, your customers are simply trying to anticipate the objections that other people might have. Now, we as professionals understand this human behavior, and we start to sense the energy that the customer is leaning away from us psychologically. We don't get surprised or upset by the objection, but we are completely prepared. So let me show you the right method to handle objections, to work with the customer through the objections, and then turn it around eventually to your advantage to where you get them back leaning in. When you hear an objection, the very first thing you say is critical. Your objection handling technique, the method you use, is critical. Remember this. 1, 2, 3. Number 1, agree. Number 2, paraphrase. And number 3, ask questions to get more information. Here's how it works. Okay, I understand. You think, and then you reflect or paraphrase the objection. Okay, I understand. You think the price is too high. Okay, I understand. You don't think this is something your boss would approve. Okay, I certainly understand. This is way out of your budget. I get you. All right, I understand. So you're telling me that my competitor was here yesterday with a better solution. Okay. I understand you can't see yourself really using this product. I certainly understand. That's number 1, agree. Number 2, paraphrase. Here comes number 3. Ask questions and get more detail. Okay, I understand. You're telling me that the price is too high. What do you mean by that? Okay, I understand. You're telling me that your boss is probably never going to go for a solution like this. What makes you say that? Can you explain that in a little more detail? What is he looking for? Okay, sure, I understand you're concerned about this. Is that your only concern? What else? I'm getting the sense that you're concerned about several things. Tell me everything that's bothering you. Or what's the real issue that's concerning you? What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? Agree, paraphrase, ask questions. These questions will take your customer from leaning back to leaning towards you. They're going to now give you information. They're going to explain the real reason for their discomfort. And you know what? Usually it boils down to only one major concern. Even when they express multiple concerns, if you're able to knock down their biggest concern, everything gets much more receptive from that point. The chemistry changes in the whole process. And you may find from asking questions that they're just not going to be able to buy this. It may not be a good fit. It might be a year or two down the road before they're able to move forward. These questions help you uncover the whole story from the customer's perspective and lead you to the best path to resolve their concerns or simply to move on. If you handle objections well, you're going to disarm the emotion, move the customer from leaning away from you to now giving you more information to now asking questions. And then you're in a positive frame of mind. Here's what you don't do, okay? You don't prove your point. When they say your price is too high, you don't give them 50 reasons why it's not. If I'm leaning away from you and now you're coming at me telling me why I'm wrong, I'm just leaning further and further away. It's like a push-pull, kind of a Zen energy thing. When people feel listened to, they will now be able to listen to you. But if you come straight out and disagree with them and throw your lists of facts and bullet points at them to prove your point, psychologically they're going to move further and further away from you. So pushing at someone when they're pulling away is a bad idea. Convincing them that you're right, bad idea. Agree, paraphrase, and ask questions to pull them back toward you. Okay? Now, you've agreed, you've paraphrased, you've asked questions, you fully understand what all their concerns are. Now you actually have to be able to address their concerns. Otherwise, they're still concerns. You should already know every objection that's coming at you, okay? What I do is every time I hear a new objection, I add it. I have a little thing on my board, and I just, wow, I hadn't heard that one before, and I add it. But most of the time when I hear objections, they're already on my list. I already know exactly what's coming. What I'm going to tell you to do here is to keep an index card for each objection. On one side of the card, you're going to write down the objection. And on the other side, you're going to write down a list of bullet points that you can cover that will help you turn that objection around. I also would recommend that you create an index card for every one of your competitors. So when they mention that they're already using a competitor or considering a competitor or have just heard from a competitor, you have a point-by-point bullets and information and knowledge at your fingertips. We're not trying to bash our competition. We simply want to point out some of the differences. So here's essentially how it would go. So your main concern is the longevity of our company. Is that right? All right, so your main concern, Mr. Customer, is that this is simply going to be beyond your budget. Is that right? Okay, so your boss wouldn't go for it because the real concern there is that in the past he's had a bad experience with us. Is that right? Okay, well, let me address that. And now you pull out your cards and you've got all your bullet points. Another very useful technique at this point, once you've identified their objection, is called the feel, felt, found formula, and I'll show you how it works. I understand exactly how you feel. A lot of our customers were concerned about our company's longevity and our ability to stand behind the warranty. They felt this was so important that it became the key criteria in their buying decision. We had the best product and the best value, but without the company being around in 5 years to support it, the warranty would be useless. What they found was, etc. Here's a great technique, and it's very important. If you already know what the objections are going to be, let's talk about anticipating objections early in the process. Whenever possible, you should add statements right up front that are going to eliminate that question or that objection. There shouldn't be any surprises. You already know what's coming. You already know the most common objection, so just incorporate information that's going to eliminate that objection later on. Now, I want to tell you a story. My wife and I were shopping for a washer and dryer. So she had taken the flyers that came in the Sunday paper, and I'm Mr. Negotiator, so we're going to go out and get a great deal. Well, we went to the appliance store, and this guy was phenomenal. So in addition to doing needs development and identifying the right washers and dryers that we should narrow it down to, while we're looking at the washer and dryer, he says, because he already knows that most people, and especially if you've got a flyer in your hand, you're going to just say, hey, you know what? I can get a better price at ABC Appliances across the street. So, I'll take your price, but I'm going to shop around. So this guy already knew that was coming. So what he said was, while we were looking at the models, he asked, hey, Mr. Gordon, have I explained our low price guarantee? No, you haven't. Well, actually, once we identify the washer and dryer that you want to buy, I'm going to go with you on the internet. We're going to look at all of our local competitors, and if we find a lower price out there, I'm going to match it. Sold, done. I don't need to go to the other store. I was just trying to negotiate. You did it for me. Of course, we bought the washer and dryer from this guy. Now, many of these types of objections can be handled with pre-statements like the one above. The others, as I said, you have an index card and you have a memorized list of things to say when this objection comes up. But the key is agree, paraphrase, ask more questions, and then be ready with the correct information to handle the objection. All right, that's the right way to handle objections. I love selling. I know you do too. It's a great profession. I want you to give your best on every sales call. Give your best effort and keep working every day to improve your sales skills. Thanks.